The text came through at 6:11 a.m. I was shaving, half the cream still on my face, razor dangling midair, when the screen lit up with her name. Not a missed call. Not some bureaucratic spam. Her. Melanie. After 376 days of silence. After packing a single red suitcase and announcing, "I need time to rediscover myself," she finally found herself, apparently. And what she discovered was me, again. "Okay," the message began breezily. "I'm done having fun. I'm ready to be your wife again." Just like that. Like we'd hit pause on life, and she figured it was time to press play. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally did. I set the razor down, wiped my face clean, and walked into the kitchen. The sunlight was coming in sharp through the blinds, catching the dust motes in a way that made the room feel older than it was. The smell of fresh paint was fading, but still there. The cabinets weren't the ones she picked. The floor tiles weren't what she insisted on. And the coffee maker, well, it actually brewed coffee now. Real coffee. Not that herbal decaf nonsense she swore by. The kind that kicks you in the teeth before you've spoken your first word. I brewed a pot. And I brewed it for two. If you've made it this far, it probably means you're one of the silent ones. Like me. The ones who take the punch, hold the line, and rebuild without the noise. If that's you, do me a favor. Hit subscribe. It helps more than you think. Keeps stories like mine, and maybe like yours, going. Anyway, I didn't respond to her text. I powered off my phone. Not because I was angry. I wasn't. That was the weirdest part of all this. I expected a rush of something. Bitterness, maybe. Or even smug satisfaction. But all I felt was still. Not peaceful. Not vindicated. Just still. You don't realize how much noise someone brings into your life until they're gone. And then stay gone. And you learn to live in the quiet they leave behind. Melanie had always been loud, even in silence. Her perfume lingered in the hall long after she'd left. Her routines haunted the space between hours. When to start laundry, when to lower the blinds, what plate to use for sandwiches. White, not blue. For months, I followed those ghost rules out of muscle memory. And one by one, I started breaking them. New plates. New towels. New blinds. By the end of last winter, I'd finally opened the upstairs window she used to hate for letting in too much wind. Funny thing is, the breeze felt good. She never texted during that whole year. Not for her birthday, not for Christmas, not even when her favorite aunt died. I only found out because the obituary ran in the town paper, and I recognized her maiden name. She vanished. And now, she was ready. Ready. Like marriage was a jacket she took off when it got warm, and now that it's chilly again, she wants it back. I poured 2 cups. Set one across the table. Not a grand gesture. Just a simple one. Muscle memory, maybe. Or something else entirely. The seat across from me wasn't empty by accident. There were footsteps upstairs, light, padded. Then the faint rustle of slippers. The door creaked. And Rachel walked into the kitchen with a half smile and a cardigan draped around her shoulders like she wasn't quite ready to face the day, but would anyway, out of stubbornness. She saw the second cup and tilted her head. Company. I nodded. Kind of. She didn't ask who. Didn't need to. I slid the phone toward her, still off, but the message's weight was somehow still burning through the black screen. Rachel sat, picked up her mug. What do you want to do? I smiled. Nothing. Because I knew Melanie. And she was already on her way. Melanie used to hate the smell of pine. Said it reminded her of cheap car fresheners and bad motels. So of course, when it came time to rip out the old carpet, I picked pine floors. Rich, dark, stubbornly clean pine. The kind that creaks slightly when you walk on it barefoot in the morning. Just enough to remind you you're still alive. The walls followed. No more beige eggshell tones she'd fought so hard for in that Benjamin Moore aisle. Now they were slate gray, the kind you find in the stormy parts of the sky just before rain. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because beige didn't suit silence. Above the mantel, there used to be a black and white photo of us in Bar Harbor. Melanie and her son had. Me with half a smile, holding 2 lobsters like I'd won a contest. That photo's in a drawer now, somewhere under expired warranties and an old TV remote. In its place hangs a painting. Oil on canvas. Moody coastline, wind-whipped trees, and a single empty bench facing the ocean. Rachel picked it out. Said it looked like somewhere her sister used to sit and think when she needed quiet. Rachel, I'll say this, she's not a woman who takes up space. She fits. She listens more than she talks. She doesn't rearrange my shelves or tell me how my coffee's too bitter. And when I told her about the text, she didn't ask what it meant. She didn't cry. She didn't smile, either. She just placed her mug down gently, looked me square in the eye, and said, "What do you want to do?" I let the silence stretch. The kettle clicked off in the background. The fridge hummed low. "Nothing," I finally said. "Let's just live today." She nodded. And just like that, the moment passed. No dramatics. No speeches about boundaries or forgiveness or trust. Just life, as it had been for months now. Quiet, deliberate, and free of guesswork. We'd met because of my sister. Rachel was one of her college friends, had flown out to help with hospice those last 3 weeks. We bonded over bedpans, bad hospital coffee, and shared grief that didn't need translation. After the funeral, she stuck around to help sort through old boxes. 1 week turned into 2. Then the couch became hers. Then the guest room. I offered. She didn't assume. It just made sense. Rachel started making lists. Grocery notes with Real butter instead of that margarine Melanie insisted was better for our arteries. Handwritten reminders to check the furnace, pick up windshield fluid. Then came the Saturday routines, lake walks, flea markets, movies on mute with wine. We never called it anything, but I hadn't felt that steady in years. That morning, the light poured in just right. Rachel wore that same thick-knit sweater with the missing cuff thread and read the paper with her feet tucked under her on the chair. My eyes kept drifting toward the phone I'd left powered down on the kitchen counter, like I was waiting for it to twitch. She followed my gaze. "You think she'll come?" I exhaled through my nose. "She won't wait long." She reached for my hand, but didn't squeeze. Just touched it lightly, her thumb brushing the edge of a callus. "You don't owe anyone a scene, Grant. Especially not her." I know. But that was the thing with Melanie. She didn't come back for closure. She came back for control. For her old spot at the table. For the ease of a man who never pushed back. Except this time, the table had moved. The seats had changed. And the man she once left behind? He didn't wait. He rebuilt. Still, I checked the porch on my way out to the shed. Swept the dust from the steps. Retightened the porch light bulb that flickered too much. Rachel was watching me from the kitchen window. I gave her a small shrug, half an apology, half a habit. Not for her. Not for Melanie. For me. Just in case the storm arrived early. The envelope was cream-colored, thick, with a faint floral border that screamed Melanie more than her name ever could. She always had a thing for stationery. Said texts were lazy, that handwritten notes showed class. Back when things were good, I used to get little folded cards in my lunch. "Drink water today, you mule," or "Dinner's your favorite tonight. Don't ruin your appetite with pretzels." I kept a few. Most ended up in the trash like the casseroles we stopped enjoying together. This one had no return address. Just my name, first and last, in that looping, overconfident script she used when she felt like the world should bend a little faster for her. I opened it at the mailbox. No reason not to. Rachel was inside, still on the call with her niece about some art contest the kid didn't win but should have. A breeze kicked up the scent of cut grass and pine mulch. I held the envelope carefully. Too light to be anything but words or maybe a photo. It was the latter. A glossy 4x6. Melanie, alone, in a straw hat and oversized sunglasses, standing on some stretch of white sand next to a pina colada. Her smile was performative. Too many teeth. Chin tilted just enough to look spontaneous, but absolutely rehearsed. She was fishing for nostalgia, dangling bait she thought would still work. I flipped it over. In purple ink, she'd written, "Can't wait to come home. Dinner." No punctuation after that. Like she wasn't sure whether it was a statement or a question. Or maybe she wanted me to decide. I turned it over again, looked at that beach behind her. Not our beach. Not Hilton Head or Sandbridge. Somewhere newer. Glossier. With men who probably called her Mel and didn't mind when she rediscovered herself over martinis. I slid the photo back into the envelope and tucked it under my arm as I walked up the driveway. Rachel was on the porch now, sitting cross-legged with a half-done crossword and a glass of iced tea. She didn't ask what it was. Just gave me that look. Eyebrows arched halfway up, lips pinched at one corner. "That Melanie again? Look." I held it up like a prop and dropped it on the table beside her. "Postcard from the tropics," I said. "She says she's coming home. Wants dinner." Rachel raised one eyebrow, then picked up her pencil. "Should I thaw the chicken or book a flight out of town?" "She's not my problem anymore," I said. She nodded, not entirely buying it. Neither was I. I walked the perimeter after that. Old habit. Not for security, really, just something in the body needing to move. Fence still held. Gate was still locked. The shed creaked like always. But I lingered by the flower bed Melanie had once tried to plant lavender in. It never took. Too much shade. Too little patience. I bent down, pulled a few weeds. Brushed off the top step. tightened the porch rail where it wobbled, replaced the bulb on the side path lamp that flickered on and off like it couldn't decide what kind of evening it wanted to be. None of it was for her. I told myself that. But something about touching the things she once controlled, the locks, the lights, the places she used to judge or adjust, felt like closing a loop. Like vacuuming a room you'd already cleaned. Rachel came out to water the basil. Said nothing when she saw me there on one knee, adjusting the flagstone she once called crooked. Just pressed the hose handle and let the soft stream of water hum between us. She'll come early, I muttered. Rachel didn't ask who. She just replied, then we'll eat late. Later that evening, I tossed the envelope into the drawer where we kept spare batteries and old receipts. I didn't shred it, didn't burn it. I left it whole, untouched, like a pressed leaf from a tree I didn't plant. A relic from someone who still thought this was her house. I made chili that night, the spicy kind Melanie hated. Rachel took 2 bowls to the table without asking if I was hungry. She just knew. We didn't toast, didn't light candles, didn't talk about Melanie. But the door was checked. The porch was swept. The storm wasn't welcome, but I'd be damned if it caught me unprepared. At exactly 6:04 p.m., the black BMW eased into the gravel drive like it owned the place. Melanie always was punctual when it served her image. She parked without turning off the engine, stared at the house like she expected it to nod in approval, then checked herself in the mirror. 3 strokes of lipstick. A small pout. 1 practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her hair was done in those soft, deliberate waves that screamed salon money. Her heels, those camel-colored stilettos that made her ankles look thinner, clicked like a metronome against the stone path as she made her way up to the porch. The bag hanging from her arm wasn't the one she left with. This one was newer, sleeker. A brand I couldn't pronounce, probably gifted, or bought with someone else's card before she circled back. She paused at the door and inhaled deeply. I knew that look. She was rehearsing. The sheepish smile, the breathy high, the practiced vulnerability. The perfume was the same one she used to wear when she needed something, before a party, a raise request, a carefully engineered apology. 3 soft taps, then silence. Inside, Rachel and I sat at the kitchen table, pretending not to hear it. I took 1 more sip of coffee. Real coffee. Rachel raised an eyebrow. I nodded. She stood, walked calmly toward the front hall, her cardigan hanging open, bare feet padding against the pine floor Melanie had never walked on. The door opened. Rachel didn't flinch. She didn't smile. She didn't tilt her head or step aside. She simply stood there, one hand lightly gripping the inside of the door frame like it was hers to hold. And it was. Melanie's posture shifted the moment she saw her. Her smile faltered, lips parting just a little too late. There was a split-second flicker behind her eyes, recognition colliding with confusion, confidence shattering into doubt. And then she said it. Karen. Rachel blinked. Just once. No emotion. No indignation. Just confusion. I'm Rachel, she replied. Calm. Flat. Like she was correcting someone's coffee order. You must be Melanie. Melanie took a half step back, her voice catching in her throat. Oh, sorry. I thought, she cleared it. Tried again. I didn't know he had company. Rachel didn't move. He doesn't. He has a life. It wasn't sarcastic. It wasn't cruel. It was just the truth, delivered cleanly, like slicing through fabric with a freshly sharpened blade. Melanie looked past her into the entryway. Her eyes darted to the coat rack. No Grant's old jacket. No familiar umbrella. Just Rachel's beige windbreaker and a scarf she crocheted herself. Melanie's eyes landed on the floor next. New tiles. No more of that faux marble linoleum she'd spent hours arguing with the contractor about. And just like that, the cracks started forming. Tiny, imperceptible at first, but growing. She tilted her head slightly, trying to reassert herself. I'm here to see Grant. Rachel raised an eyebrow. You came uninvited. I texted. Rachel nodded. He didn't answer. Melanie adjusted her bag strap, trying to summon whatever version of herself had worked in the past. The velvet-voiced charmer, the innocent wanderer, the misunderstood wife. But all the gears were jamming now. The control she always carried in her back pocket? Gone. I didn't realize things had changed. Rachel didn't blink. That's the thing about leaving. Time doesn't wait. A pause. Then Grant's voice from behind the hall corner. Everything all right out there? He stepped into view, holding his mug, eyes calm, expression unreadable. The same way you look at a mailbox you already emptied. Melanie's breath caught. He hadn't shaved. His hair was slightly grayer than she remembered. And yet somehow, he looked better, firmer, like someone who'd found sleep again. Grant, she said softly. He nodded once. Melanie. The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable. Her eyes darted between the two of us, trying to map the new furniture, the new dynamic, the unfamiliar air. She tried to speak again. Failed. The house behind Rachel smelled like garlic and warm bread. The last thing Melanie had cooked here was resentment. Rachel stepped aside, just slightly, not welcoming her in, not barring her path, just watching. Quietly, Melanie hesitated, one hand still clutching the handle of her bag, her other hand, ringless, hovering near her side. Whatever script she'd come with, it was burning up in real time. And from my angle, I could see it. The exact second she realized she wasn't walking back into her life. She was trespassing in someone else's. I stepped up behind Rachel slowly, not because I wanted a grand entrance, but because I'd seen deer bolt from less. Melanie was standing there, feet locked, shoulders taut like she was bracing for applause that never came. Her perfume hung in the air between us. Same as always, a calculated cocktail of nostalgia and intention. But this time it didn't hit right. It lingered too long, like the punchline to a joke no one laughed at. She blinked at me like I'd grown a third eye. Wait, I thought. Karen was my assistant, I said calmly. No warmth, no venom, just facts in their natural state. You never met Rachel. That did it. That tiny stagger backward, less than an inch, was the beginning of the unraveling. She glanced at Rachel again, now with suspicion, maybe jealousy, maybe fear. But Rachel didn't flinch. She just stood there, spine straight, expression unreadable, the kind of composure you earn, not inherit. Melanie looked at me again, eyes wide. I thought you'd be alone. There it was. The truth nestled inside the lie. She hadn't come to apologize. She came to reclaim. She assumed the furniture might have changed, but her seat at the table would still be there, waiting, polished, undisturbed. She thought I'd be a museum of what she left behind. You thought wrong, I said, gesturing to the porch chair beside Rachel. I didn't invite her to sit. I didn't ask what she wanted. I just gave her a choice. And that was already more than she deserved. Melanie hesitated, not because she was unsure of herself, but because she was finally unsure of me. That was new territory for her. She stepped forward cautiously, as if the wood planks might judge her weight. Her heels clicked softly as she moved past Rachel and into the front entryway, eyes scanning every detail like a visitor walking through a stranger's home with vague familiarity. The hall mirror was gone, replaced by a framed photo of my grandson holding a fish almost his size. The old console table with her crystal vase? Gone. In its place was a handcrafted bench Rachel found at a local market. Rough wood. Honest wood. Melanie's gaze snagged on the walls. The photos were new. Rachel and I at the lake, my daughter and her kids playing tag in the backyard. Even the calendar was different. No cursive handwriting marking spa days or book clubs. Just plain block lettering and a sticky note reminding me to check the tires before our trip next month. She moved into the living room like someone wandering into a stage they once performed on, only to find the set rebuilt and the audience gone. When did you change all this? She asked, her voice thin, wobbly. I shrugged. Didn't need permission. She turned slowly, scanning the space. You kept nothing? Didn't need much. But this was our. She stopped herself, lips clamping down on the last word like it might poison her. Rachel walked into the kitchen without a word. The kettle was already heating. She moved with the comfort of someone who didn't need to prove her place. Melanie turned toward me, eyes darting, searching for something, anything, that still tethered her here. A photo, a book, her old throw blanket, a mug, all gone. This house feels different, she whispered. That's because it's mine now, I said. She flinched like I'd hit her. But I hadn't. Not even close. That was the strange part. My voice was steady low. No sharpness. No edge. It was the lack of reaction that was cutting her open. She stepped toward me. I didn't expect. That much is clear. Her face flushed. I just didn't think you'd move on so fast. Fast. I tilted my head. You left 376 days ago. That's a full year of calendar pages. And not one of them had your name on it. Silence. I let it hang there, thick and final. She looked around once more, as if maybe the walls would correct me. But they didn't. They held their silence better than I ever did. Melanie looked smaller now, like a figure drawn with too few lines. Like someone who forgot her script, stepped into the wrong house, and started speaking lines to the wrong man. And maybe for the first time in her life, she felt it. She wasn't just unwelcome. She was irrelevant. Rachel was the one who broke the silence first. You can come in, if you want, she said, not unkindly, but with the tone of someone who didn't fear rejection. I didn't say anything. I didn't nod or shake my head. I simply stepped aside and let the choice fall to Melanie. For once, the decision was hers to make without the comfort of assumption. Melanie hesitated like a stray cat approaching a porch it used to own. She stepped over the threshold with slow grace, but it wasn't confidence. It was the studied caution of someone trying to remember the shape of a place while pretending they never forgot it. She let her fingers brush the edge of the new hallway bench, then the wall, like maybe something would feel the same if she touched it long enough. Nothing did. The living room greeted her like a stranger. The furniture was all new. None of that pristine coastal decor she'd obsessed over. None of the matching throw pillows that required constant fluffing. The coffee table was wood now, heavy and scarred with time. On it, a stack of crossword puzzle books Rachel and I traded between morning coffees. The couch had an old quilt thrown over the back, Rachel's doing. Melanie always thought quilts looked too Appalachian. Her eyes drifted to the mantel. The painting Rachel had found of the seaside bench sat centered above the fireplace. Melanie stared at it, confused, disoriented. "Is that new?" she asked quietly. "Couple months now," I replied. She moved slowly toward the hallway, peeking into each room like she was afraid of what might jump out at her. The dining room table, round now, not rectangular, wasn't set for her anymore. It hadn't been in a long time. The sideboard she loved had been replaced by a repurposed bookshelf filled with board games and Rachel's puzzles. The centerpiece was a vase of hand-picked garden flowers, not the sterile white lilies Melanie used to insist on. Every room was a chapter she hadn't been written into. She stopped in the hall outside what used to be the guest room and glanced inside. Now it held Rachel's painting supplies, a small easel by the window, tubes of acrylics neatly lined up on a table that had once hosted holiday dinners. "I remember this room," Melanie said softly, her voice trailing off. "You hated when I used it for storage." "I still hate clutter," I said without turning my head. She walked into the kitchen last. Rachel stood at the stove, pouring boiling water into 2 mugs. The kettle hissed, and the scent of coffee, actual coffee, rose into the air. Melanie's eyes landed on the fridge. It had photos held by mismatched magnets. One of my grandson holding a fish, another of Rachel and me at a fall festival. There was a dry erase board with a list of groceries in Rachel's handwriting and a sticky note in all caps that said, "Tire pressure." A framed photo on the counter caught her eye. Grant, Rachel, and the boy, laughing by a lake, sunburnt noses, tangled hair. The boy had his arms around both of us. My hand was on Rachel's shoulder. We didn't look like a couple in recovery. We looked like a family. Melanie's voice cracked slightly. "You moved on." I shrugged, not cruelly, just honestly. I healed. She tried to summon her old charm, the girlish grin that used to soften every blow she delivered. "You still drink that terrible decaf?" Before I could answer, Rachel turned and placed a mug on the table. "No, he drinks real coffee now." Melanie's laugh came too fast, too loud, then choked midway through like it hit something sharp in her throat. She looked between the two of us, searching for some sign of pity, or nostalgia, or hesitation. She found none. I took my seat. Rachel followed. Melanie remained standing, one hand still clutching the strap of her purse like she might need to bolt. The silence between us wasn't hostile. It wasn't even tense. It was just filled with the truth. She left a year ago expecting the world to stall, expecting me to pause like a frozen frame until she returned. What she walked into wasn't a paused movie. It was a sequel she wasn't cast in. The house didn't hold her shape anymore. The man didn't hold her shadow. And the woman standing beside him? She didn't blink. Rachel stood without a sound, carrying both mugs back to the counter like it was any other evening. She rinsed hers quickly, dried it without a word, then opened the drawer beneath the microwave, the one Melanie hadn't even noticed, and pulled out a slim manila envelope. No label, no flourish, just quiet finality. She didn't hand it to me. She didn't hesitate. She walked back and laid it in front of Melanie like sliding a menu across a table. "Here, choose what to swallow." Melanie looked down at it, fingers twitching slightly. Her knuckles had gone pale. She glanced up at me. "What's this?" Her voice was steady, but the edges were fraying. I didn't answer. Neither did Rachel. That silence. It wasn't accidental. It was the kind of silence that people drown in. She opened the flap, pulled out the stack of paper. Screenshots first, text messages, photos, usernames. Names I didn't recognize, places I'd never been. Conversations I wasn't part of, but that painted me like a relic, a placeholder, a backup plan with a checkbook. One thread stuck out. Her and someone named Bryce. Or Bruce. Something smug. Her text read like a sitcom character explaining away their spouse. He's too small town for me. And I need freedom, not flannel. Then, a few weeks later, I'll go back eventually. He's not perfect, but he's loyal. She kept reading, slower now. Next came the printed transcripts from a few voicemails I hadn't heard. At the bottom of one, a timestamp from January. I swear, if I blink sweet and bat my lashes, he'll crawl right back. Men like that never move on. They just wait. She flipped to the last page. A QR code linked to an audio clip. I saw her pause, then pull out her phone. The first few seconds were muffled bar noise. Then her voice came in, loud and unmistakable, laced with cheap liquor and self-assurance. He'll take me back. He always does. Just gotta act sweet. Play the part. Once I'm back in, I'll have the house, the car, the safety net. Then maybe I'll figure out what I actually want. She stopped the playback before it ended. Her hand trembled slightly as she lowered the phone to the table. You recorded me, she said, her voice shrill now, brittle with wounded pride. I leaned back, arms folded. Calm. Unshaken. No, I said. Your friends did. Some of them weren't laughing with you, Melanie. Some of them realized I didn't deserve that. They sent it after your text came through. She stared at me, eyes wide, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. No rebuttal came. No righteous fury. Just the slow dripping realization that the web she thought she wove in private had been visible all along. Rachel didn't move. She didn't gloat. She didn't twist the knife. She just existed. Like a mirror Melanie couldn't look into. I was drunk. She offered, the words falling flat. So was the truth, I said. Melanie's eyes darted to the window. Like maybe escape lived outside. Like maybe if she stared hard enough, the world would grant her an exit ramp. I didn't mean all of that. But you said it. Her lips parted again, this time with something that resembled sorrow. But it was too clean, too practiced. She was digging through her usual bag of tricks, finding them all rusted. Grant, I shook my head once slowly. You came here with a script. You didn't expect a counterpoint. She looked down at the envelope again. A stupid thing, really. Paper and ink. But the weight of it was crushing her. Her nails tapped the table like she needed sound to break the pressure in her chest. Why did you keep this? She asked finally. I didn't, I said. Rachel did. Melanie's eyes snapped to Rachel, suddenly full of something close to fury. You had this the whole time? Why didn't you? Why now? Rachel finally spoke. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Because today you asked to be his wife again. And for the first time since she walked through the door, Melanie looked like she might cry. But she didn't. Because crying is for people who still believe it might change something. And somewhere deep down, she finally understood. This wasn't a trial. This was the verdict. Melanie's composure cracked clean down the center. She glanced at Rachel, who was already gathering the envelope, sliding it neatly back into the drawer without drama. Melanie's voice came in low, strained, like someone negotiating oxygen. Can I have a minute alone with him? Rachel didn't look at me for confirmation. She didn't need to. She just nodded once and walked toward the back patio, sliding the door open so gently it didn't make a sound. The screen door clicked shut behind her. The wind picked up just enough to ruffle the edge of the curtains. The house held its breath. Melanie waited until Rachel was fully out of sight, then crossed the space between us in 2 careful steps. Her hand reached for mine, hesitant at first, like touching an old relic in a museum. When her fingers made contact, I didn't pull away. I didn't tighten either. I just let her feel the stillness. Let me fix this, she said, her voice trembling. Please. I was scared. I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing. But I know now. I want us again. Her thumb brushed over mine like it used to. Her eyes were glassy, just enough moisture to suggest vulnerability, not enough to ruin her mascara. She leaned in slightly, voice softening to the tone she reserved for manipulation she thought was wrapped in love. You were always the safe place. I didn't think I'd miss it until I didn't have it. I studied her face for a long time. Let her talk. Let her fill the space with words. Words she'd never offered when she left. Words that sounded too perfect now, like rehearsed lines delivered 1 beat too late in a play the audience had already walked out of. When she finished, I didn't speak right away. I just looked at her. No rage. No smirk. Just eyes that had seen too much to be moved by theater. Then I asked the question. Not loudly. Not like a trap. Just like I needed to hear her say it. Would you still want this if Rachel hadn't opened the door? Her breath caught. It was almost imperceptible, a pause no longer than a blink. But her eyes flicked. Just once. To the hallway where Rachel had disappeared. Then back to me. That flicker was the whole answer. I leaned back, withdrawing my hand from hers slowly, deliberately. Her fingers tried to hold on, then released like they were never really sure they deserved to be there. That's what I thought, I said, standing. She didn't move, didn't protest, because anything she could have said next would have only proved me right again. The illusion had shattered. Not just the illusion that she could return, but the deeper one. The one where I was still the man who'd fall for it. She sat down slowly in the nearest chair, deflated. Her heels tapped against the hardwood like nervous punctuation. She looked down at her lap, like the right words might rise from the fabric of her dress if she stared hard enough. I walked to the sink, rinsed out my mug, and placed it upside down on the drying rack. The clink of ceramic against metal was louder than anything she could have said. Behind me, Melanie exhaled shakily. You really changed. No, I said. You just never knew me without needing me. She didn't reply. She couldn't. The clock ticked louder than usual. From outside, a wind chime rattled faintly. I glanced out the window. Rachel was still on the porch, cross-legged, sipping from a second mug I hadn't seen her pour. She didn't turn to look in. She didn't need to. That woman had the kind of spine that never needed to raise its voice. I looked back at Melanie. She looked smaller now, not in stature, but in presence, like someone who'd been measured and found wanting by a house that no longer spoke her name. I should go, she whispered. I didn't answer. She stood up, slowly, like every part of her ached in ways she didn't have names for. Her purse strap slid from her shoulder as she walked to the front door, and she had to adjust it twice, her hand fumbling. She opened the door without looking back. But just before she stepped out, she turned. One last card. One last flicker of the old her. I really did love you, Grant. I didn't say she didn't. I just let her close the door behind her. We didn't speak as I walked her to the door. The air between us wasn't cold. It was hollow, like the oxygen had been used up, and all that remained was the echo of things that might have once mattered. Melanie moved slowly, her heels softer now against the floorboards that used to memorize her rhythm. She didn't try to touch my hand again, didn't reach for a final hug. She just walked, holding herself too tightly, like she might unravel if she let go. At the threshold, she hesitated. The evening had settled outside. The porch lights were on, casting long golden rectangles onto the gravel drive. Her car was still idling, door cracked, vanity light on like it was waiting for a better version of her to come back and try again. She turned back one last time. Her lips trembled, not with words, but with the threat of them. There was water building in her eyes. I could see it, but I felt nothing watching it. Not satisfaction, not vengeance, just absence. Like watching someone cry in a film you'd already spoiled for yourself. She started. I raised a hand gently, not to silence her, but to spare us both the burden of one more scene. Take care of yourself, I said. Not sarcastic, not final, just factual. She blinked, nodded once, and stepped off the porch. I waited until I heard the car door close, engine shift into gear, gravel crunching beneath tires. I waited until the sound disappeared down the road, and the last piece of her, her exhaust, her perfume, her shadow, vanished with it. Only then did I close the door. No slam, no ceremony, just a quiet click. Rachel re-entered from the patio, as if cued by an unseen stage manager. Her mug was empty now. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't need to. Her eyes met mine, and she simply gave the smallest of nods, like we'd both come to the same sentence in a book we didn't have to read aloud. I moved toward the kitchen, opened the cupboard, pulled down 2 mugs, the ceramic ones she liked, not the bone-white ones Melanie once insisted looked more refined. Rachel leaned against the counter, watching but not intruding. She knew I needed the ritual. She understood silence in a way most people tried to fill. The smell of coffee, real coffee, rose again between us. Not the watered-down stuff from before. This was bold, dark roast. Unapologetic. I poured the first cup, handed it to her. Then the second, for me. We sat. No toasts. No grand pronouncements. Just 2 people with warm mugs and shared stillness. The house didn't feel lighter. It didn't need to. It felt real. The kind of quiet you earn. The kind that doesn't need to be defended. Outside, the wind picked up slightly. Leaves scraped across the porch. The chime on the back deck clinked once, then stopped. Rachel took a sip. You made it strong today. I smiled faintly. Figured I'd need the kick. She looked at me for a moment, then leaned back into her chair. You're not the same man she left. No, I said. He waited. I didn't. We didn't talk after that. We just let the coffee do what it was supposed to. Warm our hands. Anchor the silence. Close the door. The moon was high by the time I stepped back into the kitchen. The coffee mugs were rinsed and left drying on the rack, the chairs pushed in, the windows latched. Rachel had already gone upstairs. She never said goodnight like it was a ritual, just disappeared quietly when the day had nothing left to say. I like that about her. No performance, no trailing drama, just gravity and peace. I lingered by the window for a while, watching the faint reflection of my own face in the glass, backlit by the kitchen's soft amber light. There were lines I didn't remember earning and a kind of calm in my jaw that had never existed when Melanie was here. Funny thing about silence, you start recognizing which parts of yourself can only grow in it. The phone vibrated at exactly 12:17 a.m. One buzz. No call. Just a message. I didn't need to look to know who it was. I waited a few seconds, stared at the phone lying face down on the counter like it was an animal that might wake up angry. I flipped it over. One notification, Melanie. No preview. Just the bubble of her name, bold and white against the black screen. I opened it. Not the message, just the thread. She'd written, I didn't know how much I threw away until today. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even a confession. It was a grasp, an outstretched hand groping in the dark for something to steady her before the ground fell out again. Rachel's voice came from the stairs, soft and half asleep. Everything all right? Yeah, I said, tapping the message once. Just cleaning up. She didn't ask what that meant. Just like always, she trusted I'd handle whatever needed handling. I looked at the message one last time, not to decode it, just to recognize the tone, regret dressed in sentimentality, the kind that always came after doors had been shut, not before. I hit delete. No reply. No ellipsis bubbles. No draft lingering unsent. Just the digital equivalent of walking out of a room and turning off the light behind you. I powered off the phone. The screen went black. No chime, no farewell tone. Just gone. I set it down gently, not like a tool, but like something I no longer needed. Like a key to a house I didn't live in anymore. The fridge hummed softly. A dog barked a few blocks away. The clock ticked past 12:19. I exhaled. Upstairs, the bed was warm. The quilt Rachel had made was folded back slightly, waiting for me. Her book was open on the nightstand, spine up, as if she'd fallen asleep mid-sentence. I'd find her curled sideways, one leg tucked, hair spread across the pillow like wild ivy. And there wouldn't be any talk about what happened, because nothing needed to be explained when the silence already held the answer. Melanie was gone. Not angry, not exiled, just irrelevant. And I was free, not because I'd let go, but because, this time, I never reached back.